I remember the exact moment I realized the entire global financial system was a trap designed to keep men weak. I was perhaps 14 years old, sitting in the corner of my grandfather's office in the old market district. It was late afternoon, the air was thick with the smell of cardamom coffee and aged leather, and a man from a very prominent international bank had come to visit. This banker was young, dressed in a sharp European suit, carrying a sleek leather briefcase, and he spoke with the kind of urgent arrogance that they teach in Western business schools. He had come to offer my grandfather a massive line of credit. He laid out the paperwork on the heavy wooden desk, pointing to the low interest rates, the flexible terms, the incredible opportunity to leverage the bank's money to expand my grandfather's textile business across 3 new borders. The banker spoke for 20 minutes without taking a breath. He painted a picture of rapid expansion, of dominating the market, of instantaneous growth. When he finally stopped speaking, he waited for my grandfather to sign the papers and take the millions. My grandfather, a man who had started with a single wooden pushcart and built an empire, did not even look at the documents. He slowly poured a small cup of bitter Arabic coffee, handed it to the young banker, and looked him dead in the eye. He said, "You are a very smart young man, but you misunderstand what it is that I do. I do not rent my ambition from strangers. You are asking me to put my family's legacy on a leash and hand you the collar. You want me to build the house, take all the risk, lose sleep over the inventory, sweat over the logistics, and pay you a percentage of my life just because you type some numbers into a computer." My grandfather smiled, politely refused the offer, and sent the banker away. After the man left, my grandfather turned to me and delivered a lesson that became the absolute foundation of my life. He said, "Remember this until the day you die. A bank does not sell you money. A bank sells you your own impatience. And if you are patient, you will eventually own the bank." Listen to me very carefully, because what I am about to tell you goes against every piece of financial advice you have ever been taught in the West. The modern world teaches you that you need the bank to survive. They teach you that debt is a tool, that leverage is a requirement, and that your highest financial priority should be building a good credit score. They have brainwashed entire generations into believing that borrowing money to buy things you cannot afford is the definition of success. In an Arab household, we look at this system and we see nothing but modern-day slavery. We see a system designed to keep the middle class working until they die, paying interest on cars that depreciate, paying interest on houses they do not truly own, paying interest on an education that barely guarantees a job. There is an Arab money rule, an ancient code of financial survival that has kept our families wealthy for centuries, while empires have risen and fallen around us. The rule is very simple, but it is the hardest thing for a modern man to actually execute. The rule is this: never pay for money. Never allow a stranger to charge you a fee for access to capital. We do not pay interest. We do not buy money. We build ecosystems of trust so that we never have to step foot inside a bank asking for permission to build our lives. Let us break down the great illusion of the Western credit score. In the West, they have convinced you that a credit score is a measure of your financial character. You walk into a car dealership or a mortgage broker's office and they pull your score. If it is an 800, they smile at you. They treat you like a king. But do you know what an 800 credit score actually means to a banker? It does not mean you are wealthy. It does not mean you are successful. It means you are a highly obedient, highly profitable servant. It means you borrow their money, you pay them their interest on time every single month, and you never disrupt the system. A high credit score is just a gold star for a perfect slave. You can be a terrible father, you can be a liar to your friends, you can be a cheat in your community, but as long as you pay your credit card bill, the system says you are a man of high standing. This is a soulless way to measure the worth of a human being. In our culture, we do not need a 3-digit number generated by a faceless corporation to tell us if a man is good for his money. In our culture, your credit score is your last name. Your credit score is your reputation in the majlis. Your credit score is how you treat your elders, how you honor your word, and how your father behaved before you were even born. We rely on the social credit of the bloodline. When a young Arab man wants to start a business, when he needs capital to buy his first piece of real estate or purchase inventory, he does not go to a bank to beg a loan officer for a high-interest commercial loan. If he does that, the elders will look at him with pity. They will ask him, "Why are you paying a stranger 20% of your profits when you have 20 uncles, cousins, and brothers who have cash sitting idle?" We use a system that has existed long before modern banking was ever invented. In many parts of the Arab world, we call it the Jamia, the gathering, the money circle. It is a concept so powerful and so fundamentally disruptive to the banking industry that if the entire world adopted it tomorrow, every major bank would collapse within a year. Let me explain exactly how this works, because this is the architecture of silent wealth. A group of 10 trusted individuals, usually family members or lifelong friends, come together. They all agree to put a set amount of money into a central pot every single month. Let us say it is $10,000 per man. Every month, there is a pool of $100,000 in cash. And every month, one man in that circle takes the entire pot. The first month, Ahmed takes the $100,000 to buy a piece of land. The second month, Khalid takes the $100,000 to buy out a competitor in his market. The third month, Tariq takes it to expand his warehouse. By the end of the 10 months, every single man has received a lump sum of $100,000 to deploy as massive capital. Do you see the genius in this? Do you see what is missing from this equation? There is no bank. There is no loan officer. There is no underwriting fee. And most importantly, there is absolutely zero interest. Ahmed got his $100,000 without paying a single cent to a financial institution. He leveraged the collective power of his community to bypass the gatekeepers of wealth. But here is the critical element, the element that makes the West incapable of replicating this on a large scale. The entire system is built on absolute, unbreakable honor. There are no legally binding contracts written by expensive lawyers. There are no collection agencies. If a man in that circle takes the pot in the first month and then decides to stop paying his share in month 4, he does not get a letter in the mail. He loses his life. Not his physical life, but his social and economic life. He will be outcast. His reputation will be destroyed. No one in the community will ever do business with him again. His sons will bear the shame of his theft. The social consequence of defaulting on your brothers is so utterly devastating that the default rate in these circles is practically zero. We fear shame more than we fear a bad credit report. When you borrow from a bank, you are borrowing from a faceless entity that you have no emotional connection to. It is easy to default on a bank. It is impossible to default on the man who sat at your father's funeral and poured coffee for your guests. Trust is the most efficient financial instrument on the planet. This is what I mean when I say we build ecosystems. My own father started his second major business using a family circle just like this. He needed $250,000 to buy a manufacturing facility that was going bankrupt. The bank wanted to charge him an exorbitant interest rate because the asset was distressed, and they wanted to put a lien on his primary home as collateral. My father laughed at them. He called a meeting in his living room. He invited his 3 brothers, 2 of his oldest friends from the market, and his father-in-law. He served them tea. He laid out the business plan, and he asked for the capital. Within 2 hours, on a handshake, the money was syndicated. No interest. No collateral other than his word and his blood. He bought the facility in cash the next morning. He turned the business around in 6 months, and he paid back every single man in that room from the profits before the year was over. When you operate like this, all the money stays inside the walls of the community. The interest you would have paid to a bank in London or New York is instead kept within the family, used to fund the next nephew's business or buy the next piece of real estate. We act as our own banks. We syndicate our own risk. We keep the lifeblood of our wealth strictly contained within the circle of trust. But to build this kind of capital, to have the cash ready to deploy when the opportunity arises, requires a psychological trait that modern society is actively trying to destroy. It requires extreme, painful patience. The banking system thrives on your inability to wait. They know that you want the luxury car today. They know you want the 5-bedroom house today. They know you want to look rich in front of people you do not even like, and you want to do it right now. So they offer you the shortcut. They give you the loan, they give you the keys, and they quietly place a chain around your neck. You drive the car off the lot, and you feel like a king, but you are not a king. You are a renter. The bank owns the car, the bank owns the house, and because you have to wake up every morning to pay them, the bank essentially owns your time. In an Arab family, we teach our children that anything bought with debt is a curse. A man who drives a 20-year-old beat-up Toyota that he owns in cash is infinitely wealthier and infinitely more respectable than the man driving a brand new Mercedes that the bank can repossess if he loses his job. Let me tell you about my uncle. If you saw my uncle walking down the street, you would think he was a poor man. He wore the same plain sandals for 5 years. He drove a pickup truck that made terrible noises. He lived in a modest house that looked exactly the same for 3 decades. He never wore expensive watches. He never showed off. But what the public did not know, and what the bank certainly did not know, was that my uncle owned the entire street his modest house was built on. He owned the commercial plazas at the end of the road. He owned the land under the gas station, and he owned every single square inch of it in pure cash. He never took a mortgage. How did he do it? He worked, he saved, and he waited. When he had enough cash to buy a small piece of land, he bought it. He did not leverage it to buy a bigger piece. He held it. He saved again. When the market crashed and everyone else was being liquidated by the banks because they had over-leveraged their debt, my uncle walked in with briefcases of cash and bought their repossessed properties for pennies on the dollar. He was the apex predator in a market full of leveraged prey. Patience is not just a virtue. Patience is a weapon. When you have cash and no debt, you can wait out any storm. When you owe the bank money, the clock is always ticking. The bank controls your timeline. We do not allow anyone to control our timeline. You must understand the concept of riba. In our religious and cultural tradition, riba translates to usury or interest. It is strictly forbidden. It is considered a major sin, a destructive force that eats the soul of a society. The West looks at this and thinks it is just an outdated religious restriction holding back economic growth. They do not understand the profound psychological and economic wisdom behind the prohibition of interest. When you charge interest, you are making money off the sheer passage of time and the desperation of another human being. You are not creating value, you are extracting it. When you pay interest, you are willingly giving away a portion of your life's energy to an institution that did nothing to earn it. The prohibition of interest forces an Arab businessman to be creative. It forces him to seek equity partnerships instead of debt. If I want to start a business and I need capital, I cannot just go borrow it at 5%. I have to go to an investor, usually within my network, and offer him a percentage of the business. We share the risk. If the business fails, we both lose. If it succeeds, we both win. This creates a society of partners, a society of shared fate. The banking system creates a society of predators and prey. The bank does not care if your business succeeds or fails, as long as they can liquidate your collateral. They want you to take all the risk while they take a guaranteed return. It is a rigged game, Habibi, and the only way to win a rigged game is to refuse to play it. I see these young men today, moving to big cities, trying to build their personal brands. They lease luxury apartments they cannot afford. They finance designer wardrobes. They use credit cards to buy tables at high-end restaurants, all to project an image of success. They are financing a lifestyle on credit, hoping that looking rich will somehow make them rich. It is a tragedy. They are bleeding from 1,000 financial cuts, and the banks are drinking the blood. We teach our sons to embrace the struggle in silence. If you cannot afford it in cash twice over, you cannot afford it. Period. There is no negotiation. If you have to ask what the monthly payment is, you have no business looking at the asset. We teach our children to focus exclusively on cash flow and asset accumulation, not consumer leverage. You take your capital, you buy an income-producing asset, and you use the income from that asset to fund your lifestyle. You never use the principal. The principal is sacred. The principal is the golden goose. You do not slaughter the goose to buy a watch. You wait for the goose to lay a golden egg, and you use the egg. This brings me to the structure of the family treasury. In deeply rooted Arab families, we operate with a collective treasury mentality. We view the family's assets as a sovereign wealth fund. The patriarch does not just amass wealth for his own comfort. He is the chief investment officer of the bloodline. When I generate excess cash from my businesses, I do not just leave it sitting in a checking account letting inflation eat it, and I certainly do not hand it over to a Wall Street wealth manager who will charge me massive fees to put it in mutual funds. I look within my own family ecosystem. I look at my nephews. I look at my younger cousins. Who is hungry? Who is working hard? Who has a proven track record of discipline? If my nephew wants to open a logistics company and he has spent 5 years working in the industry learning the ropes, the family treasury will fund him. But we do not give it to him as a gift. A gift creates weakness. We structure it as an internal equity deal. The family provides the capital, he provides the sweat, and the family takes a silent percentage of the business. The money stays in the family, the profit stays in the family, and the young man is elevated without ever having to bow to a banker. Do you realize the immense competitive advantage this creates? While the Western businessman is spending half his time filling out compliance forms, arguing with loan officers, and stressing over fluctuating interest rates, the Arab businessman is focused purely on the market. His capital is secured. His backing is absolute. If there is a downturn in the economy, the bank will pull a Western businessman's line of credit and force him into bankruptcy. If there is a downturn for the Arab businessman, the family council meets. We restructure our internal expectations. We inject more cash if necessary, and we weather the storm together. We do not cannibalize our own. The bank will eat you the moment you show weakness. The family will shield you when you show weakness, provided your honor is intact. But this system only works if the hierarchy of respect is maintained. The West has decentralized the family. They encourage children to leave the house at 18, to become completely independent, to cut ties with the traditional structures of authority. They call it freedom. We call it isolation. When you are isolated, you are vulnerable. When you are a single unit out in the world with no backing, you have no choice but to rely on the banks, on the government, on the corporations. You become a perfect consumer. In our tradition, we maintain the hierarchy. The father is the head. The grandfathers are the advisors. The sons are the soldiers. The daughters are the foundation. We move as a phalanx. When you have 50 people moving in unison, sharing resources, sharing information, sharing capital, you become an unstoppable economic force. I know exactly what every one of my cousins is investing in. We share market intelligence every Friday after prayers. We do not compete with each other, we coordinate. If my brother is buying commercial real estate in one district, I will buy in the adjacent district so we can control the regional pricing. We do not act as isolated individuals, we act as a cartel of blood. The banks despise this. The financial institutions are terrified of communities that do not need them. They spend billions of dollars on advertising to convince you that financial independence means having a black credit card in your wallet. Financial independence actually means never needing a credit card at all. It means your signature on a piece of paper is worth more than a bank's guarantee. It means you have built a life so deeply rooted in reality, in hard assets, and in human trust, that the fluctuating numbers on a stock market ticker cannot touch you. I want you to think about the debt you are carrying right now. Think about the student loans, the car payments, the mortgage, the credit cards. Calculate the interest you are paying every single month. That money is the sweat of your brow, the hours of your life, the time you could be spending with your children, and you are taking it and handing it to a skyscraper full of executives who do not even know your name. You are funding their bonuses, you are buying their yachts, and you are doing it voluntarily because you wanted a lifestyle you had not truly earned yet. It is time to wake up, Habibi. It is time to break the chains. It is not going to be easy. If you decide to walk the path of cash and patience, you will look poor for a while. Your friends will mock you. They will drive past you in their leased cars, wearing their financed clothes, and they will wonder why you are moving so slowly. Let them laugh. The man who builds his house on a foundation of stone builds slowly, while the man who builds his house on sand throws it up in a weekend. When the storm comes, and the storm always comes, the sand will wash away, and the stone will remain. Start today. Cut up the cards. Pay off the chains. Stop trying to look wealthy and start doing the invisible, agonizing work of actually becoming wealthy. Pool resources with your brothers, with your closest friends. Build a jamia. Start small, $1,000 a month. Build the muscle of trust. Learn to hold capital without spending it. Stop looking at banks as your saviors and start looking at them as your predators. You have everything you need within yourself and within your community to build an empire. The knowledge has always been there, passed down from the desert markets to the modern boardrooms. You just have to have the discipline to execute it. If my words have shaken something awake inside of you, if you are tired of playing a game designed for you to lose, then you are in the right place. Subscribe to this channel. Comment below and tell me exactly what debt you are going to destroy first. Share this video with a man who is drowning in the illusion of credit and needs a lifeline. And if you are still here, if you have listened to every word, Habibi, follow for more. We are going to build your foundation, stone by stone, in absolute silence.